Good morning, America. Thank you for watching Taxes Made Easy. We've got some excellent information today, and we're going to really dive into those case studies for offers and compromise. So if you have any questions, give us a call. And as we walk through this, we're going to see exactly what happens with an offer and compromise, what a case looks like. So again, give us a call at 520-485-7371 if you have any questions. But really going to take some time to walk through the process so people know what it actually looks like. So stay tuned and we'll be right back. Good morning. Welcome to Taxes Made Easy. So we've got a lot of information to cover and want to make sure we set aside plenty of time to talk about these case studies for offering compromises. So I actually kind of walk through what a case looks like and how to get the best result for your specific case. And that's one of the big questions I get from people is how long is it going to take? What's the process? We'll walk through it. So I've talked about the process generally, and then we're going to dive into what actually happened on some real cases. So first article we're going to share today is actually a different kind of article. This comes off almost like a infomercial here, but so this is from Conservative Stack. I'm not familiar with this site, but it talks about parallel economy. So this is the censorship resistant ecosystem, etc. The idea being that it's resistant to government control. And again, there's been stories about how banks have allowed or disallowed payments from different companies that were considered unacceptable. In particular, people buying and selling guns. So other conservative causes have had issues with this, and that's not my focus. That's not why I'm bringing up this article. That's why they have this parallel economy. But the interesting part of it is that they are bringing Bitcoin payments to merchants. Now, it's not something I see very commonly, but it is something I have seen, and I've had people ask, do you take Bitcoin? It's only happened a handful of times, but as Bitcoin is growing in the market, it would be very interesting to see Bitcoin transactions completely skip the US dollar. So again, it's supposed to be a more secure, efficient, cost-effective way to process payments. And as Bitcoin is expanding, President Trump is talking about really putting a lot of effort behind Bitcoin and other digital currencies. I don't know. It'll be very interesting to see what happens in the future. So again, this is a first from what I've seen. There might be other merchant services or credit card processing companies following a similar path. So again, it's could be very useful to businesses moving forward. Let's see what happens. So the next article here. Interesting article about car loans being upside down. And this is hitting an all-time high. Part of the reason, vehicles are more expensive. Post-COVID, the price of newer vehicles went through the roof. But now they're starting to come down. And as they come down, the car notes are coming down as well, but it's gradually come down. It hasn't come down nearly as quickly as they went up. So that is actually a good thing. So more and more U.S. citizens have debts that are more than the value of their car. So when you're upside down, it makes it a lot harder to trade in a vehicle, to sell a vehicle, and do a lot of these things. So average amount owed It's climbed to 6,458 compared to 6,255 in quarter 2 of 2024. And so again, they're just seeing those numbers climb. And then quarter 3 of 23 was 5,808. So the general trend, people are owing more on their vehicles. And really the problem here is going back to 21, 22, people paying well over MSRP. So the payments didn't really make as big of a dent in their loans as you would, and the drop off in value has really created this negative equity. If you're in this situation, there are ways to deal with negative equity. But again, it's one of those things, people need vehicles. And when you're purchasing, the newer the vehicle, the bigger the loan, the bigger the hole. So one of the things that Trump has mentioned, we're going to get to this moving forward, is making car loans tax deductible, which would really help people, but it would encourage people to take out loans. But I mean, it only helps with about, depending on how much you pay in taxes, the benefit could be reduced quite a bit. But they used to be tax deductible. Democrats and conservatives, or Republicans, got rid of that as they cleaned up the tax law, got rid of a lot of deductions. But it's something that Democrats and Republicans have also talked about putting back in. So let's see. It could help a lot of people, but it could also encourage more people to owe money. So this has been in the news, and I haven't mentioned it, over the last couple of days, but it's interesting to see some of these facts come out. And so this came out. This article came out yesterday, October 17th. And we're going to go through this, and just, even though it says just the facts statement, usually when they say just facts, pause, question, look at another source here. So it does the overview, and really this is fact checking both political parties, which is why I like the article. So Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, and the so-called fact checkers are claiming that violent crime is at a 50-year low. On the other side of this spectrum, Donald Trump is alleging that crime is worse than it's ever been. Neither one of those are true. So when you look at the murder rate in 23, it was 36% higher than the more recent low in 2014, but 14% lower than the modern peak in 2021. And there's a problem with those numbers too. So post-COVID, yes, crime has gone up. And we're gonna talk about this. One of the big issues here is FBI data. So FBI reporting, and it's been alleged that a lot of these crimes are not being reported for political reasons. So these FBI crime statistics, it's based on voluntary reports of crimes, and they exclude crimes like sexual assault, simple assault, attempted robberies. And again, we have robberies that are through the roof now with what's happening with small theft throughout major metropolitan areas. It really has become a huge issue. And also you have changes in police procedures, shifting attitudes toward crime that can affect the extent to which people report law enforcement crimes. So a lot of crimes they're just not getting reported. So when you take the statistics going all the way back to 1976, and this is essentially where it can appear to be near a 50-year low based on stretching out the numbers, but even these numbers aren't that accurate. But they recognize that the FBI stealthily revised its 22 crime data, but interesting enough, they just revised up their 23 data as well. So looking at for the last few years, that was high in the 90s and has come back. It went down through 2008. It was lower, but these numbers, the last few years, crime has gone up 12% to as much as 69% increase from 2020 to 23. And FBI statistics show a 6% decrease. So depending on how you slice it, the FBI numbers show a decrease, whereas the NCVS violent crime rate shows a much higher increase. So it gets complicated, it breaks it in the numbers, but we're going to jump to the next article that talks about this very thing, and this is from the right, from Daily Caller. But again, the FBI crime showing that 2.1 decrease in 2022, recently updated showing a 4.5% increase. Now, they just did the same thing for, I believe it was 23. For 23 as well. And this was done just in the last couple of days. This is after the debates. No, I'm wrong. But it was the 22 crime stats that were updated. And again, when Trump cited these in the debates, he was fact-checked. They accused him of being incorrect. And a month later, the FBI revises their numbers up, showing that those are actually up. So again, crime is on the rise per the FBI, per those numbers. And again, we see very startling revisions after the fact, which is, again, concerning. How do we rely on the government and the government's numbers? So again, Just Facts Daily was questioning it, looking at different contexts. And here, just a couple weeks before the election, the government itself revises their numbers, showing that crime has been increasing by almost 5% year over year. So who knows what's going to happen with 2022 numbers when they actually revise those. So we're running out of time, but I do have probably time to share this next article, or at least introduce it. We mentioned one of the things, the differences in tax plans, and we mentioned this yesterday. And Tim Walz was out and he said, look, we're going to continue with the Green New Deal. It should not be scrapped. So the concerns here is government spending has to be brought under heel. It really has to. Trump is proposing a lot of tax cuts, which reduces federal revenue over time, but at the same time, we need to cut spending. The Green New Deal, per this article, it's a $10 trillion progressive climate change bill. That's $1 trillion a year, and going up with time. And where that's not everything that we're spending on climate change. The problem with that is, in the long run, can we afford it? And what kind of damage is it going to do to the economy? So we'll continue with this right after the break. Welcome back, everybody. And just continuing on with the previous article, Tim Walz saying that the Green New Deal shouldn't be scrapped, it should be kept in place. And the question is, we've got to cut spending somewhere. Or, again, I don't care who's the president, we're going to have to increase tax rates dramatically, and not just on this idea that we're just going to tax the rich. It is ludicrous. So one of the concerns here, again, when talking about specific states like Pennsylvania, their natural gas industry supports 123,000 jobs. The Biden administration has put a ban on any export of natural gas, liquefied natural gas. We talked about that yesterday. And again, it's a huge boon for the state, $41 billion in 2022. However, the big concern here is that part of this is that the natural gas, or the Green New Deal wants net zero carbon by 2050, which not only is anti-fracking, it's anti-natural gas, which is one of the cleanest fossil fuels out there. And that's not an all of the above approach, which what Tim Walz was talking about. He said we need an all of the above approach, but that's the concern with these, mandating EVs, mandating net zero energy, which is there's no way to do that in our current situation. You'd have to. I mean, right now you have coal and gas power plants that are backing up solar and wind. So again, if you just have solar and wind, you can't have reliable energy and increase the use of electricity. Just it's at cross odds, so or cross purposes. So jumping to the next article. This one touches on something we talked about yesterday. So they just announced this agenda for Black men. The link, it's been in other articles. I spoke about it yesterday. Opportunity agenda for Black men. And again, it talks about 1 million loans for Black entrepreneurs, support education for Black men, protect cryptocurrency for Black men, launch a national health initiative for Black men, legalize recreational marijuana, and create opportunities for Black Americans to succeed in this new industry. So the problem with this is that it is blatantly unconstitutional. And it was so bad that the Harris administration, or the Harris campaign, realized that, and they have switched this up. So it's, even though they touted this as for Black men, it will be open to all, campaign says. So the problem with this is if you sit there and you do this provide millions of loans that are fully forgivable to the public at large, up to $20,000 for all entrepreneurs to start a business. One, that money's going to be gone like that. Two, if it's fully forgivable, this is like the EIDL and PPP loans all over again. It's like COVID all over again. So we're that's going to have a huge cost. This one loan, provision alone. So 20,000. 1 million loans at 20,000 each. That is 20 billion. No, I'm off. That's not billion, but that's $20 trillion. Let me double check my math. When you get that high, yeah, $20 trillion. And so if you provide it to all people, there's no way that you're going to provide just 1 million in loans. When you pay for support, education, traineeship, mentorship programs that lead to good paid jobs for all men, first of all, it's still based on gender. So that's violence equal protection clause. So you can't base it on race, gender, race, sex, religion, etc. So just focusing on men is unconstitutional. Protecting cryptocurrency investments, so all men, again, so still, even if you say all, you still have the problem here. Know their money is safe. You can't protect. It'd be like going in and protecting cryptocurrency over normal investments, over CDs, over if a bank fails. I mean, we do some of that on the bank level, but when people invest in the stock market, there's nobody protecting them. That's the risk, inherent risk. And so to have the government go and protect cryptocurrency in general would be amazingly expensive. National health initiative for all men, or you make it for all Americans. Again, again, this is going to create a lot of cost. And so again, so they said, oh, well, we meant all people. But when you look at what that's actually going to mean, I think this was meant to sound good, but I don't think this was thought through. So let's see what happens with that moving forward. I don't think that's going to last very long at all. There was, before we dive in, and I want to talk about, to be fair, Trump. And I'm not going to go through all of this. This kind of goes into the weeds. But again, this is from the Washington Post, which is more right-leaning site, taking some shots or criticizing Trump's approach to the tax system. So again, instead of having, we're going to go to 2 brackets, or we're going to make a flat tax, and making serious overhauls to our income tax system, which is what more conservatives want. Trump is more doing tweaks around the edges of the whole thing. So no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security benefits, and also on overtime hours. Are just a few of the proposals he's made. Some of those have been put out by Kamala Harris as well afterwards. Latest one is making car loan interest payments tax deductible. And then he also wants Americans living abroad to pay, he doesn't want them to pay U.S. taxes if they're already paying taxes in foreign companies, which is they're being double taxed. So they're paying foreign taxes as well as taxes, on their income abroad. So again, it's popular with the base, but a lot of people, not Trump, but conservative policy wonks would rather see a much broader tax proposal. And usually when you do massive reform, you get rid of a lot of exemptions. You create an even playing field rather than benefiting certain groups. And another thing that goes to that was getting rid of the SALT cap, which Democrats love, ironically, and it does help Republicans in blue states, but at the same time, it does not create a flatter, fairer system. It still benefits those that are living in blue states, and have red states subsidize blue states because of their high taxes. So again, it kind of runs counter to where they want him to go. And again, this is where it calls for flattening tax brackets. And this is all part of Project 2025 to make this fairly conventional, to make it a fair tax base that's loophole free, leads to less distortions, and enables lower tax rates because you don't have a bunch of loopholes. Trump's going in the opposite direction. So while he's disavowed 2025 or Project 2025, it looks like he's definitely going in a different direction. And so we'll see what actually happens if he gets elected. But that's what he's proposing. That's what he's selling. And last article here. And so just real quick, I kind of jumped away from that article a little quick. I think it's probably better to do overall reform or cut taxes across the board. I think cutting taxes generally is a good thing, but it doesn't matter if we don't fix our structural issues. Social Security is one of those huge structural issues. So, I mean, not taxing tips, not doing this or that will help groups of Americans, but not the economy overall. This is one of the biggest problems here, and this is why I highlighted this article. It's from creators.com. So this is Ronnie Deary. She's a well-known journalist, came out yesterday. So again, a lot of people argue that Social Security is impossible to reform, but we've got to do it. Otherwise, we're just going to, if we don't do anything, you're going to be faced with Social Security benefit cuts of 21% across the board. And then that's coming soon. I believe that's coming in 2035. So less than 9 years. Oh no, 10 years. But it could be coming sooner because Congress loves to spend, and the Social Security Trust Fund might be exhausted before then. So the question is how. So we had a cash flow deficit started in 2010. Everybody knew it was coming. And we've been relying on the surplus that built up since 2010 to pay the difference between what the system has been taking in and paying out. So ever since 2010, we've been spending more than what we've been taking out. And you had reform back in the 1980s. And during that period, it collected more revenue than necessary. But again, the Department of Treasury, they haven't kept the money there. It hasn't been invested. It has been gaining interest. It's been gaining interest at the government rate. So essentially, the government has taken all that money, conservative, Republicans and Democrats alike have done this, and spent the money on other things. So it's a legal promise to pay Social Security. But what that means is that when payroll taxes don't cover all of it, the general budget has to. And because we've already spent all that money, or Congress has, it's coming directly from the federal budget. So in 2033, so sooner than I expected, again, these numbers keep changing and usually keep changing sooner. Last I saw, I think it was 2035 or 2034. 2033, in 9 years, no more trust fund assets left. So by law, it will revert to being paid only with revenue from Social Security. So that means current payroll taxes and also tax on Social Security benefits. So proposal from Democrats, keep all the benefits and just raise taxes on higher income people dramatically to cover the difference. Problem is, they're already paying the majority of taxes. And the more you raise the tax rate, you hit what's called the Laffer curve. People just stop making money, and it backfires. So she claims this is a ridiculous idea. The damage caused by jacking up the payroll tax isn't worth the benefit. So again, it would backfire. And she proposes another alternative. One of the alternatives they've had is they've pushed out the age to retire and get the maximum benefit from Social Security. So currently what they're doing is by keeping all the benefits and they're saying that currently seniors are generally wealthier than younger workers and are overrepresented in the top income quintile or fifth of taxpayers. So, but they've saved their money, they put their money and they're trying to retire, and that's when they'll have the most assets. Now, income is different than assets, so they're saying keeping every dime of Social Security benefits in place when you're rich or poor means you're effectively taking money from younger and poorer people and giving it to richer people that are older. So again, she said we need to redistribute money to those who need it most, and this is where a lot of people are going, is reducing benefits for those that have more money. So just doing a 21% cut, I do believe this, and I'm spending more time on this than I want to, but it is important to understand this. If you do a 21% across the board, it would double the elderly poverty rate and reduce total income for the median senior by 14%. So there's so many people surviving on Social Security, or people that have planned to retire on Social Security. I haven't planned for it. I don't know what it's going to look like when I'm going there. But most people, 30s to 50s, they don't know what to expect with Social Security. But a 21% cut across the board would hurt way too many people that are already hurting. And again, the problem is you can't rely on Social Security. You can't rely on the government. If if you do just rely on Social Security, you will most likely end up very poor in your retirement years. One of the things that would happen is that they would cap monthly benefits at $2,050 a month. So that would cover full benefits for about 50% of retirees, and those that are making more, people that pay more into the system, just won't get the benefits that they paid in for. So again, a lot of people think it's their Social Security, their rights, because they paid in the system. But again, it's been severely mismanaged, so we'll see where that goes. And to distribute the funds on a progressive basis, meaning that the higher your income, the larger cut you would face. It's not going to happen. I agree that it's not going to happen that everybody's going to get all the benefits they need, because you can't just raise taxes enough without hurting the economy overall to cover this. And again, the government overpromised and mismanaged the money, and it's brought us to this situation where we need to take serious actions and make some serious hard decisions about where we're going with Social Security. This is a good read. I would recommend, again, it's going to be posted with the show, read through it, discussing it to help understand what's going on with Social Security. I don't agree with all the recommendations, but I think we need to have the discussion, because that's the problem. Is it's a sacred cow. Nobody wants to touch it. You talk to the Democrats and it's just raise taxes on the rich. That's not going to fly. You talk to Social Security retirees and say, okay, well, how can we cut benefits or raise the retirement age even more? And it's inconceivable. And again, they feel like they've earned it, they paid in for it. But unfortunately, you can't trust the government, and I don't, because I negotiate with the IRS. I can't trust them as far as I can tell. So again, lesson learned, a very painful lifetime lesson that again, both parties have used and abused Social Security system, and there's no money left, and the excess money will be gone roughly 9 years. And the longer we wait to address it, the worse it's going to be. So I want to switch gears to our main topic of the day. And I have a minute before our next break. I want to do a quick overview of what it looks like for an I-4 compromise. Just like any case, you have to go in there and first of all see what's going on. You have to do a compliance check, see what taxes are owed, what years need to be filed. You need to get the returns filed and make sure that they're compliant not only with their filing requirements, but their payment responsibilities. So make sure they're not going to owe moving forward. So I just spoke with someone yesterday. They had an offer. It was a successful offer. I believe they stopped on their payments. The whole thing unraveled, even though they had a successful offer since a year or two later. So again, we're going to touch on it when we come back and really dive deep into what an offer and compromise process looks like and what it would look like for you. Welcome back, everybody. Hubert Johnson here. Thank you for watching live or on rebroadcast here at Taxes Made Easy and the Smart Money Channel, culture.com. So we're going to focus on, this is an interesting case. This was a gentleman who first hired on as essentially a pro bono client. He was paying us $100 a month, what he could to start. And the idea that he would just pay us a minor amount to handle hundreds of thousands of dollars with the IRS and state of New York. This might be the only one we get to because it is so involved. But as I was mentioning, that you have to do the compliance check, you have to make sure the tax returns are filed, make sure that he's not going to owe moving forward, and then you can prepare the documents to submit for an offer and compromise. Typically, though, however, what we normally do is we go in and we negotiate an interim agreement. So I just was talking to someone yesterday and we said, look, we're going to go in and we're going to stop collections In their case, their passport is suspended, so we're going to do a hardship status first, get them out of collections so that they can get their passport, and then move forward with the offer of compromise. And that's something we do on a regular basis. We stop the collection activity and then move forward. So this is a case, it's a very long case, but for some clear reasons as to why it's been so long. First of all, they hired back in 2019. Now, some of this has been done and taken care of for quite some time. Back in 2019, when they first hired, this, like I said, this is a reduced fee case, mostly pro bono. So again, they didn't pay much. His situation was that he was homeless, but and he had a teenage son living with him at the time on the streets or between shelters, etc. In a very difficult situation, we took it on mainly to do the right thing by him. So first thing we had to do is get the tax returns prepared and filed. We started around April. We got the power of attorneys. Again, had to get some information from the IRS and try to address these payments. So it took us a long time to get the tax returns done. And we referred them to a tax professional and that we work with. And it was until that year we got them finished and submitted. And then in January of 2020, just to give you an idea of where we were, tax returns were done. They were submitted to the IRS in the state of New York for processing. So we're handling state and federal. We typically try to do that where we're helping both. We had, already had a couple balances on file, and some of these returns actually started getting processed February of 24. Now, not everything had been processed, and they had business issues as well. This is where most of this came from, some business issues. And then we hit last call March 5th. Still waiting on one more return process. They said give us 6 more weeks. And what happened in 6 weeks? COVID. So when COVID happened, again, everything shut down. We are next on the case in August, trying to pick up the pieces from COVID. So you had the lockdowns, the IRS shut down, New York shut down. It was a mess. So following up with New York, they hadn't received the tax returns. So again, we're 1 year later already. COVID just threw a giant empty wrench at things, and the IRS had and still has containers of mail that they're going through. Someone told me that recently, that they still have mail that they're going through from all the way back in COVID. But again, it really set them back. So we prepared his offer of compromise documents for the IRS, had those ready by December, and mailed out the initial documents to him versus to get the case started. And we had a freeze on the case with New York. They still hadn't processed the tax returns, and this is June of 2021. So we're getting ready to go with New York, what the IRS New York called in. At this point, we found out that the client had a mental issue. So now we're all the way forward in August. We haven't been able to get a hold of him due to his situation and the difficulty of what was going on. We weren't able to get a hold of him for 3 months straight. During this time, we had filed the offer with the IRS, and we were just waiting for someone to be assigned. So part of this is so important to maintain good communication through this process. If you have a health emergency, which happens, please communicate that to us right away, and we can move forward. So at this time in August, we were following up with the offer of compromise unit, waiting for someone to be assigned. At the same time, we were completing the paperwork for New York because it took New York much longer to process the returns. So we again sent them the documents in September for New York, and we were ready, just waiting on the IRS to sign the revenue officer to move, or offer examiner to move the case forward. As we in October, I mean, this guy's homeless, doesn't have any assets, doesn't have any income, and the first letter received was, it looked like an offer rejection letter. And let me pull it up. They said first, oh no, that's New York. They said it was incomplete. They needed, they wanted tax returns. He didn't have any tax returns. And again, we had to explain them the situation. We followed up with at the same time as they were dealing with New York, we're following with IRS, and they were out for vacation for most of October. And then we just continued following up. So this is how it goes, is that once someone's assigned, we're constantly staying top of mind, not bugging the heck out of them. We don't want to be annoying, but at the same time, we're staying on top of the case. We're touching base with them. Hey, we're here. We're still here. Every couple of weeks, what do you need? Do you need anything? Again, so at this time, she had asked for some updated bank statements. We provided those, and we were ready for her when she came back from vacation. In November, we confirmed that they had received the response that he didn't need to file tax returns because he had no income and was homeless. And so they moved his offer forward there. In November, the IRS, this is November of 21, so just over 2 years after being on the case, and yes, COVID delayed things by approximately a year. We're just waiting for someone to be assigned and handle the case. We have someone that's assigned. We've contacted them, and they called us November 1st and told us, by the way, we're reassigning your case to someone else. So, and then within a short time, we had, we were actually contacted by the IRS and also and by the IRS offer examiner. And so we had to resubmit proof of bank statements and proof of food stamps to her. We did that, and as we went through this, we've sent all the documents to the offer examiner within a week or two that she requested for New York. And you got to remember, we've got 2 cases going on. So the IRS, we offered $20, which they do accept. In this case, she counter-offered at $500. So we called the client, and again, he responded, I'll make it happen. So and this is on a debt of about $100,000. To give you a better idea of what the debt was. It was about $100,000 owed to the IRS. Now, because of that, again, the IRS can counter, and he had a choice. He could accept that, or say, look, I really do qualify for a $20 offer. I'm going to fight it. The thing is, when they counter offer, it's bird in hand. If you accept that, it's a done deal. All you have to do is pay the $500 and then not owe again in the next 5 years. He said, look, I can scrape together $500, I'll borrow that, whatever. He decided to accept that. Could we have contested that? Yes. We could have contested that $500 counteroffer, but it was something he was willing to put together. And every time we get a counteroffer, we always, it's not our case, it's the client's case. So we make sure they were fully informed, had an opportunity to accept or reject the counteroffer and fight for a better offer. He decided it was in his best interest to accept it, be done with it, and be able to breathe when it came to the IRS. So he accepted that. We wrapped up his offer with the IRS. It was a successful offer. Yay. And then we continued with New York. New York was a much more fun or challenging, you could say. Typically, the states are much harder to deal with and do offers than the IRS. New York actually has a pretty decent program, but they're not going to do it for $20 like the IRS will. They don't have a clear guidelines, so to speak, as to what the offers should be. So in this case, we went back and forth with New York. Again, we were waiting to hear back from New York to get this assigned, and unfortunately, we're looking at this. They had accepted the $20, and he was struggling to get the $500 together with the accepted offer. When it came to New York in February, they responded to us and said, look, we need something. We're not going to do a $20 offer. We can't accept something like that. And I said, look, here's accepted offer from the IRS. They did $500. Is it possible we can do something like that? And he owed over $100,000 to New York as well. I went up to a manager and they said, look, can't do it. Had him look to a friend to try to get $10,000 down to pay it. And that was our offer to New York. And New York came back and said, look, we're just not going to accept it for $10,000. We want more. And they wanted him to file some more paperwork. They got put out. So now we're well into 2022. And they tried to do an increased offer of $10,000. And eventually that got rejected by New York. They said, look, we just want to give this more time. We're not going to accept it at this point. And so that got put on the back burner. When the state of New York rejects an offer, really your only options are to set up an installment agreement or to just float along. The problem with him is that he couldn't get a driver's license. They had suspended his driver's license. So we prepared and submitted another offer and compromise once we got more funding secured. So now they wanted $25,000 was the new goal. So we got approval for that from a friend of his, and then we resubmitted the offer in 22. And again, we went through the process, provided all the documents to New York, and by time someone got assigned now is August of 2022. We're pushing this further back, and they were going to wipe out the debt completely for him with this updated offer. And again, then something popped up that they needed more. They needed to include a business that was connected to him. So they didn't. Prior year and a half that we're working on this, New York didn't ask for this. They changed their policy. Unfortunately, sometimes that happens in the middle of the case. They'll change their policy. And I need to make a long story short. We had to get a new power of attorney for the business, which we did. They didn't require it before, when they went through the entire process before. Now they were requiring it, which was actually good for him because then they were going to wipe the whole thing out. So we had to revise, resubmit, and this is why this case drug on. But again, this is the commitment that we do to taxpayers, that we will stay on the case until it's completely wrapped up. And in the end, he did get an accepted offer for the amount that he secured as far as funding for $25,000 to settle over $100,000. So he paid $500 to the IRS, $25,000 for his offer for New York, and there's two cases settled. It took us altogether about 4 years to settle all of this, but that's what you get when, again, we charge a flat fee, so this is on us to make sure it's done right. So we will see you tomorrow. Thank you for watching.